This is my 63rd rally, and I drove here from Point Pleasant, New Jersey. It's quite a distance, about 325 miles.
Why all of this passion for Donald Trump?
Well, two things. These rallies, this is the greatest show on earth, the Trump rally. I mean, Donald Trump is our first rock star superhero president. I mean, he's like the real life Tony Stark. They should call him President Iron Man. There's nothing like a Trump rally. I mean, it's amazingly entertaining.
I'll play for you his second point in a moment, but first, I agree in part with this Trump supporter. We spoke to him recently in Concord, New Hampshire, and he is correct about the entertainment aspect of Trump rallies. There is no political figure who has as much charisma as Donald Trump. It's not even close. Trump's cadence, ability to own a room, and skill at dumbing things down and making his audience laugh is unparalleled. Altogether, it makes these Trump rallies more like a rock concert than a political rally. Unfortunately, Trump is bonkers, has fascist tendencies, and is totally deluded. Most of his supporters are also a bit out there, as evidenced by the guy in the neon green hat. And by the way, he approached us the moment we set up our camera. So he has a message he wants to deliver. And here is his point number 2.
As a friend of mine who was in an agency in the government that I shouldn't talk about once said to me, he said, you know, we got to remember, this country's in trouble. So we have to remember Christmas Day, 1991, we woke up and the Soviet Union ceased to exist. He said it was just gone. He goes, they just folded. He goes, at the agency, we didn't even see this coming. And he goes, boom. He goes, don't think this great nation can't disappear in the blink of an eye with the wrong people in charge. And he goes, my God, we got the wrong people in charge right now.
Who are the wrong people in your estimation right now?
Well, let's face it. Joe Biden has got the IQ of a sack of carrots.
Sack of carrots? Well, were you able to follow his line of thinking? It was a bit confusing to me, and I feel I'm pretty good at deciphering MAGA code. I think the guy was quoting a friend of his from the CIA who noted that events can change the world very quickly, and that if the United States is not careful, we will fall apart just as quickly as the Soviet Union did. I think the comparison is ridiculous, but you see where the mind is for a lot of these Trump MAGA faithful. They are absolutely convinced that everything in the United States could be wiped out in a second because of Democrats. There's no logic to the argument or point of view, but there is a strong feeling. And in some people, emotions are always a stronger influencer than cognition or intellectual capacity. And Donald Trump plays on his supporters' emotions more strongly than most of us could ever appreciate or explain. Now, back to the New Jersey guy who loves to talk. He was similar to a lot of other Trump MAGA people who share a concern that you can also find on the anti-establishment left. A lot of folks on the right and left believe, rightfully in my view, that our political system is corrupt and that our elected leaders are largely bought and paid for by powerful corporations and rich corporate interests. In this establishment political system, we the people get ignored and diminished, except by a few politicians, including Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders on the left and drain the swamp Donald Trump on the right. Trump's policies actually boost corporate interests and power, but Trump supporters are absolutely convinced that Trump is a populist who is trying to root out all the corporate and political corruption in Washington. Watch.
That Capitol building is in D.C. It's the largest brothel in the world. With few exceptions, most of the representatives in there are whores, and they're whoring themselves out to communist China. They're out for their own profit, for their own money. They have no concern for America. It's personal wealth and power.
Could you also say that they're whoring themselves out to corporations and all the lobbyists?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. They should. Donald Trump came to town and couldn't believe it and saw them on their knees, whoring themselves out. And he started figuratively slapping them in the faces, telling them, get on your feet and act like Americans, for God's sake. And that's why they wanted to destroy him.
So on that issue, I mean, some Democrats and some Republicans would agree there's too much money in politics, there's too much corporate power, there's too much for the big corporations, the wealthy.
Yeah, to quote a famous Democrat when there were still good Democrats, Harry S. Truman, didn't he say anybody who gets rich in politics is a crook? You know, I mean, how are these people like Nancy Pelosi and others? How are these people in Congress who are earning a salary of less than $200,000 a year acquiring tens, hundreds of millions, you know, multiple homes? I mean, there's something really rotten going on here, and that's what I think is maybe President Trump's greatest achievement, and I think he didn't expect it. He did a lot of great things.
Trump's greatest achievement was taking on the corruption of Congress. Except in reality, Trump didn't do it at all. But again, we're talking about the emotions of Trump supporters. They feel something with Donald Trump that is so emotionally strong, it overrides the intellectual ability to step back and have a sober, fact-based, and reality-grounded analysis of Trump. Anyway, I appreciate that Trump supporter and all the others who are willing to talk with us on camera and reveal what's going on inside their heads, as difficult as it is to try to figure out. For the most part, the Trump folks are polite, and it underscores my contention that most of MAGA world is not inherently evil, they are just misguided. Unfortunately, the result is the same, and let's be clear, with Donald Trump, our democracy is in peril. By the way, one of Donald Trump's lawyers, Alina Habba, recently had an epic meltdown outside the New York courts.
But I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at, and I've had a judge who is unhinged slamming a table. Let me be very clear, I don't tolerate that in my life. I'm not going to tolerate it here.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.